Alrighty, and we're on.
Hello.
Monica Lou,
Yes, hi.
thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. So, Monica, I would have known you for what? 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, probably more. No?
5, 6 years?
5, 6 years.
Yeah.
And so I would have met you when?
When you first moved into this apartment.
When I first moved into this apartment? Really?
Yeah. So I was actually getting treatment across the road with Jenny's mum.
Oh, with Jenny's mum. Okay, yep.
Yep. And then she was like, oh, I've got a friend that's just moved across the street. Do you want to have dinner? And I've got nothing better to do. So I was like, yeah, sure.
Wait, so that was that like around New Year's? Is that one of those ones, or is that
End of the year, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Like 2014, end of the year.
okay?
Like kind of before Peter's birthday.
Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, Peter's birthday is like 28th of December.
Okay.
That Peter? Which Peter are you talking about?
Peter
Chi?
Chi,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 28th of December. Sorry, bro, if I got that wrong. So, okay.
Cut him out.
Were you, and so at that stage, were you already with Jimmy or not yet?
No, that's also my first time meeting him.
Ah.
Yep.
Okay. The plot thickens.
Has it?
Okay. So maybe that was a setup.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, we've known each other for quite a few years now, and you're Taiwanese,
Yes,
Right.
I am.
proud Taiwanese.
Yep, very.
And we'll talk a little bit about that a bit later. But
Sure.
you were born in Taiwan, right?
Yes, I was born in Taiwan.
Yeah. Which part?
Taipei.
Taipei.
Yep.
And what age did you move to Australia?
So it's a little bit of a back and forth, complicated story. So my mum always wanted to migrate overseas, and she tried US.
Yep.
But then she was like 24, young single lady. They rejected her application.
Okay. Yep.
They were scared that she was going to find a guy and then settle down.
Okay. Yep.
And then she met my dad and then had me. But because she always wanted to migrate, I think she influenced my grandparents. And so they actually were the one that had a successful application to Australia,
Yep.
which is kind of closer to
Okay.
Taiwan. And then so they came here. And then because my parents were married,
Yep.
they couldn't migrate through my grandparents' application. So they had to just come over here as students. So I
Okay.
came when I was 1.
Okay. So how did your grandparents get to Australia then?
They just applied for a migration. They applied for it.
Was it like a working visa? Do you know what kind? How they? Or was it Australia pretty open back then and just said, yeah, come?
I think it was like a business.
Yep. So did they start a business in Australia?
They did. They were running a grocery, Asian grocery.
Okay.
I'm probably one of the first
First.
few
Yeah. So it sounds like almost like a typical
Asian family.
Asian family style of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I sort of wonder about that is because when my parents migrated to Australia, so originally my parents met when they were studying in New Zealand.
Oh.
And part of the reason why they ended up in Australia, so my brother was born in New Zealand, but then my dad couldn't get a PR in New Zealand.
That's strange.
Yeah, despite he studied there, and
Yeah.
then despite I think he told me he tells the story when I did a podcast with him, but basically he'd written to like the Prime Minister of New Zealand or something like that,
Wow.
or the immigration minister back then, and still couldn't get approved. So then they jumped on a boat and took a boat like a ferry style thing that went across the Tasman or whatever and into Sydney
Legally?
legally. Like it was like they came in on like a holiday,
Okay.
and then just it sort of went from there, right? And then they
Right.
just stayed and then built a life as a
Yeah.
result of that.
That's such a typical Asian story as well, because like I think New Zealand's always been a bit easier
Yep.
to migrate than Australia.
Yep.
So a lot of people that I know, their family went to New Zealand first, then made their way
Made
back.
the way across.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, there's heaps of Kiwis that are in Australia anyway. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're part of Australia.
yeah. Well, So okay, do you remember anything about your time in Taiwan? Like obviously at the age of 1, right? Like I don't know whether you'd remember a lot.
No, but I went back. So I came when I was about 18 months, and then I stayed until I was 6.
Mm-hmm.
Then my dad got a job back in Taiwan, so we all went back.
Okay.
Like my family only.
Yep.
So my dad, my mom, and me. And then I stayed until I was 12. Then we came back to Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sort of got, so you sort of established a life here, then had to go, well, your parents sort of, because that's still 5 years, right? So
Yeah. But they spent that majority of the time doing their master's degrees. So they were
So they
here
came
as
here
like
to
a
study.
student visa.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep.
And then that visa expired and they couldn't extend it. So they just decided that it's probably just meant to be. Just went back to Taiwan. They wanted me to have that Asian education. I think that worked out all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you remember what your parents studied?
Yep. So my dad is a civil engineer.
Yep.
Graduated from UNSW. And then my mom is a physiotherapist and she graduated from UCID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't picture your mum as a physio.
She's too chill or?
Yeah, like she's very, very relaxed and I did not expect that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Did either of their study choices influence yours at all? So you studied design, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Certainly. Actually, I was listening to your podcast with Jimmy True.
Yep.
And I did a similar degree when I first went to uni. I did Bachelor of Arts and Science from UCID. That's pretty much a degree where you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
You could pick subjects from like all sorts of faculties.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do, but I'm interesting. I've always been interested in like building stuff, pulling stuff apart, like the engineering side, like influenced by my dad. So I've always wanted to then transfer into an engineering degree, but then I attended a few classes. I was just like, this is way over my head. But influenced by my mom being very creative, I looked at the UX book again. Had like crying sessions with my mom, like, I don't know what I want to do in the future. And then she's like, well, just look what other degrees there is, or even take a year off. And I was like, no, I just want to continue. And then so somehow found industrial design. And that sounded like the perfect dream degree that is like practical but creative. So then I applied to all the universities, and then in the end I got into UNSW, which is kind of cool because that means like I went to UCID for a few years, which is like my mom, and then finished a degree at UNSW like my dad. So had a taste of both
worlds.
Yeah.
And I guess while we're on this topic, right? Did you find the culture of those campuses very different, or was it like, I guess from an experience perspective, did you have a very similar experience between UCID and UNSW, or how would you describe it?
UCID, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I was dabbling in all sorts of faculty. So I think I had that university life. But once I got into industrial design, this course was really kind of like bunkered down into this place called like the Square House. And that's just my degree. Like everyone from that faculty, that course is just there. Like I'm just in there and out there. So I didn't really get to explore UNSW that much, but still. Yeah. A lot of all-nighters.
A lot of all-nighters?
Yep.
Well, that's,
part of life.
Well, P's get degrees, right? So
that's what everyone says.
Yeah. There are so I went to UTS, right? So the UTS campus is basically the city. Yeah. So, and I was at the engineering building, so the big brown tower that everybody sees with the UTS symbol at the top, and then at Marcus City was the business and law campus, and so that was where I did all my law subjects and things like that. So, but for me, the thing that I liked about UTS was it was quite flexible. So I think UNSW was probably a little bit stricter based on what my friends would say at the time, but I didn't really have too many classes which were compulsory, so I probably didn't attend as many of the classes that as I should have. But I was actually fortunate for that because I was working at the same time, and so it allowed me to sort of structure things and I sort of felt like I could get away with quite a lot of things at UTS that I probably may not be able to get away with at another university. But I think, some people might go, oh, that's bad. But actually, for my situation, it was good.
Right.
I managed to sort of condense, the degree down and get done, a year earlier than what I was supposed to. Even after failing a couple of subjects, I had to do one summer, to catch up on a couple of subjects. But, and funnily enough, it was the engineering subjects that I failed. I failed 2 engineering subjects. And
I'm not surprised. It's so dry.
Yeah, and you back then, it's we the online learning hadn't really kicked in as yet. So it's not like now where I think for most uni students now, it's like if you miss a lecture, it's no big deal because you can just get the lecture notes, or you can watch the video because a lot of the sessions are recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, if you had a notebook, or a laptop computer, and you were taking notes on that in uni, it was a rarity. Most people still was using just pen and paper.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think those things are probably a little bit different now, so it probably does afford a bit more flexibility. But at the same time, I think it's good to be on campus. You get to see and meet other people and establish relationships and things like that.
Definitely. Well, actually, I did apply for UTS, and I think I got an interview, but I didn't make it because I chose to go to Europe.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so I applied. Like I mentioned, I applied to industrial design to a few different universities, and the UTS one actually, I like the fact that they incorporated like a job placement on their 4th year.
Yep.
I thought that was really practical and a good step for this kind of industry.
Yep.
But yeah, I obviously couldn't make it to the interview. I decided to go see Europe instead.
Yep.
And then just obviously didn't make it.
Okay. Well,
and back then there's no Zoom, so I couldn't have interviewed
done
over.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because we brought it up, and I've sort of gone a little bit out of order to how I normally like to do things. But let's talk about that Europe trip because I'm sort of curious because we never really talked about this, right? So
yeah.
How long did you go to Europe for?
Oh, it's been so long. I think I went for 2-3 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
Yeah,
okay.
it was a long trip.
Yep. And then which places did you go?
So I had a friend that I met from a previous trip in Taiwan.
Okay.
And I just kept in contact with her, and she went to study a degree in London.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, are you for real when you offered for me to crash at your dormitory?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, come over. And I was like, all right.
I booked my flights.
Yeah, I literally booked my flights and just went over, and then I used that place like as a base and went to see Scotland and Ireland. And then during Christmas, we went to Amsterdam. We went to Italy. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that your first sort of trip by yourself? Like a big trip by yourself?
Definitely. First big trip by myself. But I've been flying back and forth Australia by myself since I was young. Yeah. Because my grandparents were here. Yeah. And sometimes my parents couldn't get away during my school holidays. They'll just send me over and I'll just catch a flight over and then get picked up at the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, let's go back to that, right? So you came to Australia when you're say between 1 and 18 months. Yep. So what are some of your memories from that first stint in Australia before going back to Taiwan? Because you would probably have some memories up to the age of 6, right?
Yeah. I remember the house that we lived in. Mm-hmm. It was in Maroubra.
Ooh, in the suburbs.
Yeah. I remember going to preschool. I remember sleeping after lunch. You have to sleep. You have to take a nap. Oh, I hated taking naps. In those uncomfortable canvas stretch beds. Yep. And then I also remember kindergarten. Yep. That's like right before year 1, right? Yep. Yeah, I remember that. I remember having a fight with a boy.
Okay. Over what?
I think he was bullying another kid. Okay. And I just said I don't remember what I said, but I just couldn't let it go, and I'd be like, nah, we gotta hash this out. But I think I got beat up behind the bushes.
Okay.
And I also remember getting stuck on the monkey bar.
Okay.
That's very specific.
That's very specific.
Yeah. And I also remember, because my mom still talks about this, one time I was waiting for her to come pick me up and she was running really late and I was just sitting at on the stairs near the school office.
Yep.
And I was just watching this little lizard, or not lizard, like the really tiny ones.
Yeah, skink. I think
Yeah,
they call it skink,
They're
something
just like running, and then I was just like really bored, so I was like kind of like tiptoeing behind it, and then it got so spooked that it dropped its tail.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, and because it kept on like wiggling.
Yeah.
And then when my mom came rushing, I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm late. I was like, Mom, look at this. Oh my gosh, she's got so scared. Yeah, so that was some memories in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So your parents were obviously studying at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when you say you're living in Maroubra, so were you living with your grandparents as well in the same place?
Yep. So my grandparents, my parents, me, and my younger uncle and my older uncle. So my mom is the middle child, and she has an older brother and a younger brother. They obviously came to Australia because of they were single, so they could just migrate with my grandparents. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And so that would have meant your household would have been quite lively, right? With that many people living in it.
Yeah. And I was the only grandchild.
So do you feel spoiled as a result of that?
Definitely very loved. But I have memory, like I've always been quite self-disciplined in a really weird way. Like people will offer to buy me stuff and I always would be like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always been like that since I was young, and everyone thinks that I'm a good child.
Yeah. So that wasn't something that like your mum or your dad was like, oh, look, if they offer you to buy, you should say no and just be polite or something? Or
Well, they obviously said that, but which child can resist?
Yeah, I guess.
So I think it's a little bit of personality and like discipline, but like they weren't like overly strict on anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, so when you were 6, you would have gone back when you went back to Taiwan. So your parents went back to Taiwan, obviously, because your dad got a job there.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a civil engineer, I'm guessing, obviously?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then was that a bit of a shock for you to then go back to Taiwan?
Certainly. Like, so up till that point, my language was only Taiwanese, not even Mandarin, like Taiwanese, like Hokkien, and English. Yeah. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And
so in your household, your family all speaks Mindanao?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Like, yeah. And then, so when we went back to Taiwan, the first week or two of kindergarten was like cultural shock.
They would have thought you were like a ghetto kid, right? Because like, and I don't mean that in any sort of bad way, but like I guess, when you usually think about speaking dialects and mother tongue, right?
Yeah.
It's I guess when you compare it to speaking, Guoyi or Putonghua, it's like, not to say lower class, but you know what I mean? It's for the common people, right?
Definitely. And we lived in Taipei, so that's definitely, I was like, ghetto from the countryside. But then she also speaks English. So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really different. But I recently went through my kindergarten like yearbook, like I had like photos.
Yeah.
And I realized I only attended kindergarten 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, no, back in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
Before I went into year 1. So, but I have so much memory of my kindergarten.
Really?
Yeah, I reckon it's because it was like my first memory of Taiwan. I mean, like not counting all the
but
18 and younger.
Because it's like a big shock, right?
Yeah. So I remember so much like, and also in the photos, I was a really big kid.
Really?
Yeah, I was like at least half a head taller than all the kids around.
Wow.
And we're in the same age, okay?
I thought maybe were you in the wrong grade?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, yeah. But yeah, that's another story. When I came back to Australia, I had to
repeat.
Didn't repeat, but like a drop a grade. But in Taiwan, the school year starts in September.
Okay.
So it was just normal to like, oh, just in case if my English didn't pick up enough, then I'll just drop half a year. But essentially, and also in Taiwan, kids start school later than in Australia.
Okay.
So I end up being like 1 to 2 years older than my peers in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk more about that. But, okay, so what else do you remember about, kindergarten in Taiwan?
In Taiwan, that we all had to have a little handkerchief pinned to the chest so they can use it to wipe your hand after you wash your hand.
Okay.
So that you don't dribble water all over the place. I thought that was so hygienic.
Yep.
And I remember going to the shops with my mom to pick out the cutest handkerchief. So that was nice. I remember like nightlife in Taiwan, like just you come out of your apartment because that's
everyone's in an apartment.
Everyone's in an apartment. You're literally in like shops, and then
what district would you live in Taipei?
Daanchu.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like right near Taida, Taiwan Daxue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's a very lively because there's a lot of university students. Yeah, so it's a very lively area. There's a lot of food, and like nighttime, me and mom will go to like this 小吃摊, so like hawker street kind of thing, and then like we'll 吃炸鸡屁股.
Fried chicken ass.
Yeah, chicken butt. It's so fragrant and delicious.
But it's the tail, right?
Yeah. Just a little.
Just to clarify, it's that I think it's in English it's called the parson's nose or something like that, right? So we're talking about the little tip that's got a little bit fatty and
it's the skin,
but not the actual bum hole.
Not the bum hole. And it's delicious when you fry with some white pepper and some basil.
Yeah.
And there was one time, next day when I went to school, my kindergarten teacher was like, so what did you get up to last night? And I was like, none the wiser. And I was like, nothing, just like had dinner and went to bed. And she's like, you sure you didn't go and get chicken butt? Obviously she lived loco and saw me and my mom.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I also have a vivid memory. So it's very common to have in Taiwan, fruit is very abundant and like it's very good. So there's a lot of like fruit stalls and one time I was just I've gone to the shops with dad and mom and they were picking out fruits and I was just like looking at different stuff. And then suddenly I noticed this adult male looking at me and I was like, holy shit. I don't feel comfortable. So I like inched closer to my dad and then was like hugging his leg. And then I looked up and it wasn't my dad.
Oh no. Wrong guy.
Yeah, and I was like, holy shit.
It's all right. That's happened to Cadence before.
Yeah.
So when we're in Malaysia and we went to Port Dickson and we were staying at a hotel and in the lobby I think we were going to check in and I was wearing this pair of shorts and there was another guy that was wearing the same pair of shorts. And so Cadence wasn't watching what she was doing and then she's gone and hugged this other guy's shorts.
Yes.
And then she's looked up and she's like, in shock.
Yep. Yep. That's me. Yeah. I don't recall the shorts color, but I'm sure it was like similar. That's why I was. Yeah.
So then I guess, once you're in an environment like that though, you do pick up the language quite quickly from speaking Mandarin Chinese. I'm talking about Mandarin Chinese, right?
For sure. I think that's the best way to pick up a language is like immerse yourself in it. So there's no way that I didn't pick up quickly. Yeah.
So then how would you describe yourself? Because, you did 6 years of schooling there before coming back to Australia. Like, how would you describe yourself in those primary school years? What kind of a kid were you?
I don't know. Like a fun kid.
Yeah.
I like to think that. I think I remembered a lot of games that we played in Australia in kindergarten. And so I do have memory of me during between class breaks, I would round up the kids and be like, let's go play this game. And they would be like, how do you play it? And then I'll just tell them like, this is the rules, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then so I remember those memories. So I would like to say that I'm fun. I think I haven't changed that much. Everyone thinks that I'm nice, which can be good and bad.
Yeah.
It's a constant struggle sometimes. Like you want to be nice, but then you don't want to be like a pushover.
Yeah.
And it's a very fine line to tread that I have to constantly kind of battle because I just want to help people, you know. Yeah. And maybe just the Asian in me as well. Like I just want to feed you.
Yeah. But do you feel like you've been trampled on in the past?
From time to time, and it could be because in hindsight I didn't really set boundaries. I didn't set like ground rules properly. So obviously, like, why wouldn't they want to like push and then see how much they can get away with, you know?
Yeah.
That's only human nature.
Yeah. Do you have an example that you'd like to share of that?
No.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, like I think, you know, once I always call it the that's the stage where you sort of like present figures, right? So you're showing your cards and you're saying this is where I stand, and you're trying to establish where somebody else sits. And I think, you know, it's one of those things. It's really difficult to get to that honest sort of level of conversation. Like somebody has to always give first.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So, and I think, you know, I've sort of always been a bit fortunate where I've been very easygoing about giving. Like I always feel like I'm comfortable to share, you know, a lot of things about my life and share, you know, stories and you know, generally come to the table first. Because at the end of the day, I think, you know, I have this sort of personality where, yeah, like I've got heaps of things that I think are embarrassing, but, you know, if I wear them as a strength, then they're probably not as embarrassing, you know, like it hurts you more when you're afraid of it. Whereas, you know, if you're not afraid of it and you've come to terms with it and you're open about it, then it doesn't really impact you anymore. Like if you're okay to talk about it, you sort of let it go already. But, you know, a lot of the times, you know, that doesn't mean that you don't have any of those moments. Of course, there's plenty of those moments in life where you feel like, oh shit, I can't believe I did that, or it's embarrassing and things like that. But then, you know, it's only through reflecting on those things that you can actually then work out, okay, how did I end up in that position, right? Like there's a saying that I always love to use when I'm talking to people and staff, right? It's how am I complicit in the outcomes that I'm receiving, right? So I think some people get their nose out of joint when they think, you know, it's very easy to blame other people and then they feel like, oh, it's because of this or it's because of that. But forget about the blame side of things, right? If there's a factor of your actions, let's say it's 10% or 20%, maybe it's 50%, could be 100%, right? But what part of that is have you been complicit in the outcome that you're receiving, right? So generally, you know, I think if you then go back through and you start looking at trends in your life, then you realize, oh, okay, perhaps if I keep getting this result, then maybe I'm doing something incorrectly. Yeah?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So going back to primary school, when you then, so what year did you come back to Australia?
After I finish
primary school. Yeah. Okay. And then what was the reason for coming back?
I think my parents ultimately wanted to come to Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. So they just thought that is a good time.
Yep.
Yeah. So I remember they were trying for the applications quite a few times. I remember having to do health checks.
Yep.
And I keep failing my P test.
What?
As a kid, we had to submit urine samples.
Okay.
And then like sometimes like I don't have pee or I drank too much water. I couldn't hold it until I get to the hospital.
Okay.
So I remember having to go to the hospital quite a few times just to submit a proper urine sample.
What are they testing for at that age? You're a child.
The whole entire family had to submit. So I think they don't want you to bring in disease.
Disease or is it drugs? Well, I don't know. When I think of a
I
urine test, I
wouldn't-
would think they're checking for
Possibly
drugs,
both,
right?
but it could like because Australia has Medicare,
Yeah.
and not all the countries
Okay.
have that.
But
So
did you have to do a medical as well, or is it?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was like a full
Yep.
body kind of health submit. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but it was just the one memory I remembered.
It was a struggle.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So then when your parents said, we're planning to go back to Australia, how did you feel about it? Because obviously you've now sort of established your own friends.
I think in the back of my mind, I've always known that we were going to come back to Australia. Like
Okay.
my grandparents were here. They kind of half raised me because my parents were young and also they were studying, as I mentioned. So during studying, my grandparents played a big role in my life. So yeah, I was happy to come, but at the same time also sad that I was leaving all my peers and my friends behind. But I guess it's part of life.
So when you're in primary school, because you did mention that your parents, if it was school holidays and they just send you back to Australia by yourself, did that happen in primary school as well?
Yeah, that's when it happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so then how was that for you traveling backwards and forwards on the plane? Like, do you remember the first time that it happened? And
Vaguely, I remember saying goodbye, and then like there's like this glass, and then you're across the glass, and then you're like saying bye to my mom, and then like the air hostess was like, "Oh yeah, say bye to your mom. I'm gonna take you to the airplane now."
yeah, wow.
But it wasn't my first time traveling on the plane, so I
You knew what to expect.
I knew what to expect. Yeah, so it was fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I just like
no tears?
no, because I mean, like I knew I was gonna come back. It's not like I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So I think the joy of going to see my grandparents outweighed the sadness of leaving my parents for 2 months.
Okay. So then from that, like just speaking on your grandparents, right? You mentioned that they, you felt like they're responsible for half raising you, right? So can you tell me more about what that impact is? Like, what do you feel like what was so impactful about, their influence over your life?
Yeah. Maybe it made me a bit more traditional. Like maybe the care factor is from them. With reflection, I feel like I could be quite conservative, and maybe that's also influenced by them a little. Like, and also like they've always raised me like, oh, you gotta be considerate, and also treat other people right. Also like manners, like it's always nice to my grandma has the saying where it's nicer to have the flowers up front. Like in saying like it's best to present something nice to other people before you have to deliver sad news or bad news. And she's always been quite a street smart lady. And I mean, she came to Australia and she picked up like Cantonese, and then her and grandpa running the grocery store. It would have been really tough because they didn't have a lick of English. Yeah, so having to rent a store, finding the supply for all the Asian greens, and then finding all the suppliers that imports Asian herbs and spices and stuff. It would have been very challenging for them.
Yeah. So then, did they pick up English over time though?
Yeah, they went to TAFE, but but it's just very difficult because, I mean, by then there's a lot more Asians in Australia, so I think they got quite comfortable not needing to pick up the language that much. But still, they get by. Like, they travel a lot. They hop on the train using their concession card, $2.50.
Senior citizens card.
Goes to like Wollongong. I mean, like they've even jumped onto like Country Link. And then got caught, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know."
So your grandparents that are here, was that on your mum's side or your dad's side or both?
It's my mum's side.
Okay.
So dad's side is still all in Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you were in Taiwan, would you stay close to them? Were you close to them or not?
We visit them quite a lot. But they're in Yilan, which is back in the day is a longer trip because like we had to take like the coastal route from Taipei all the way to Yilan. I think it was like several hours drive.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
And we lived in Taipei, so
Yeah, it's not easy to get out of the city.
no, but it was an enjoyable drive. I do miss those drives. It was fun. Like seatbelts were not required in Taiwan, so I'd just be like sitting in the back seat, lying down, and then get to move around the back seat. Yeah.
See, for me, I never got to meet either of my grandfathers. So either on my mum's side or my dad's side. My grandmother on my mum's side, I remember meeting because we went back to Malaysia when I was young, just for a holiday. But I couldn't communicate with her because she would only speak Teochew.
Oh.
Yeah, so she could only speak Teochew, and I couldn't speak Teochew at all. So I can only speak Chinese. So, and then on my dad's side, I never met. I don't think I remember meeting my grandfather. I'm pretty sure he passed away before I was around. But then I did spend 3 months or so living with my grandma at one point when I took a bit of a I was going to Singapore. I was meant to go work, but I couldn't work because at the time I still had Singaporean citizenship. So because my dad's still a Singaporean citizen, he registered me at birth. So by birthright, I was still classified as I still had a Singaporean citizenship as well. But part of the reason why I didn't want to exercise that right is because in Singapore we have national service. Like in Taiwan, right?
Yes.
So what happened was one summer I was looking for a legal internship and I got one at Deacon's in Singapore. And then I emailed them and said, oh, look, what do I need to do to organise a visa? And then they said, oh, we've checked with the Ministry of Manpower. You don't need a visa. You're a Singaporean national. And so then my dad started freaking out because he's like, oh, if you go and then you work.
You've got to get
so they might arrest you at the airport and say, hey, you've got to go do your national service. And so then I was like, oh, shit, what do I do then, right? So then in the end, I couldn't take the internship, so I just basically went for a 3-month holiday there. Spent the summer there, and I credit that time there with probably helping my Chinese a lot.
Okay, yeah.
Because I went to Chinese school when I was in Australia, like all throughout my schooling time in Australia, but it's not the same. No. And I feel like also I wasn't speaking as much Chinese then as I do now because of the kids. Like obviously Ange and I converse with the kids a lot in Chinese, but back then, in high school, I wasn't really using my Chinese at all, apart from at Chinese school.
Why would you?
Yeah, right. There's no need to, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But then when I had to go back and live with I lived with my dad's eldest sister and my grandma, and basically they don't speak any English, so they're the opposite way, right? So it was either Hokkien or Chinese.
That's great.
So so they'd speak to me in Chinese, and I credit that for helping me pick up a lot of my Chinese language skills, and sort of helped me to get my accent back and things like that. And then that sort of carried back on when I came back.
So you don't sound too fob in Mandarin.
Yeah, that's right. So, but one of the things and I just remembered this because it's quite sad because my dad's eldest sister had a son, and he actually passed away when he was 21.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a motorbiking accident in Singapore.
Oh.
Yeah. So I know that really, that he was the only son from that side, I think.
Yeah.
So, and they had a couple of daughters, but he had a motorbiking accident and passed away.
That's
so
terrible.
I think at the time that I went, I was probably around the same age as what he would have been when he passed away. Obviously, he's much older than I was. So I think from that perspective, I probably got a little bit of favoritism from that perspective. I was the even though my brother, is 7 years older, but I was the one that came back. Went back to visit.
Yeah.
So they had, I probably had a bit more of a relationship from that perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but my grandmother's passed now, so I don't really have any remaining grandparents.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty fortunate. My grandparents from my mom's side is still here. My grandma from my dad's side is still healthy and alive. Unfortunately, my grandpa, my dad's dad, passed away. Oh my God. Maybe 5-6 years ago. I'm really glad that I was able to take time off work and go back and do all the proper rituals and attend his funeral. It was a really traditional Taiwanese the way that they organized the funeral.
Yeah.
Yep. And
So what did you have to do for that?
we had chanting. I had to stand like behind these were they, what's the equivalent of nuns?
A monk?
No, like they're for Taoism, like
Oh.
Nigu.
Okay. I don't know what.
Well,
Yeah,
I
they're
don't-
nuns. They'd
actually,
be nuns.
Are they nuns? Yeah, okay.
I think they're still
They're
the
just called
translation
nuns.
of right? Yeah.
And then they will be, are they nuns? I don't know. Maybe they have like these special services, like where they specially read out these chants, and then the family will have to take turn, kind of like just standing behind them and read as much, or like at least just stand there if you can't read, and then just kind of pray for like a smooth passing.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we had to my uncles and aunties organize this. It's really hard to describe. I think it's very different to Australian funerals. There's like a lot of flower. There's like bouquets of like these special flowers with that people will buy for you.
Like the wreath ones?
Yeah, like
the big ones? Or
not exactly wreath. It's more like a pot, and then it's like just lots of
So it's like, okay, so I guess the easiest way to describe it, when you see Chinese shops open, you'll see them, but instead of being red flowers, it'll be white flowers.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And did you have to wear like the white uniform and the headband thing?
Because I was a grandchild, I think only the sons needed to wear. So obviously you don't wear something bright colored.
Yeah.
But the sons wear this what's this material? Hash? Not hash.
Hessian?
Hessian, yeah.
Hessian, yeah. You'd like almost like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
Hessian
like hat.
Yeah.
And then there's like this Hessian pin thingy that people, I'm not 100% with the traditions, but like, it was just, it felt really heavy. Yeah, but it was really good to be able to participate with the entire family and sending my grandpa off properly. It was really emotional, but it was really good to have everyone together. Yeah, and I was glad that I was able to go back to Taiwan with my brother that time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I always sort of get, like there's in some podcasts we hit this point where it's like, oh, okay, that's a bit morbid now. It's like, okay, I need to sort of like lighten it up a little bit so it's not so heavy. So let's go back to coming back to Australia, right? Mm-hmm. So you finished primary school over there. So when you came back to Australia here, you should have been entering year 7, right?
But I didn't.
Okay.
It's not because I didn't want to, but like the education system said, like, no, because you finished primary school, we can't just send you off to high school. We're gonna place you in this English intensive language center. Place. ESL basically, but like it's not, like normal high school will have ESL classes, but this is like a whole school of just like fresh off the boat people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of this. So.
Yeah, so this was Cleveland Street.
In the city?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Cleveland Street High School, but then it was just like the English language, intensive language center. And there's like about 3 grades, and then you go through it quite quickly. I think I was only there for like 3 to 6 months. I'm not sure how long it was. Just not a long time, but then I think it wasn't that long. So when you go there, they will do a assessment to see where you are at, and then they'll slot you into the level that you're in. And then basically they take you through like English class, math class, arts class, music class, cooking class, like basically all the basic classes that you attend in high school.
Yep.
But everything is very on the basic level.
Mm.
You get like worksheets. It will, in like the cooking class, it will be like knife. And then you get to like write your translation on what it is in your language so that you learn what it is. There will probably be like a little image of like, that's a knife.
Yep.
And then like English class, we do like dictations, and then we learn syllables. We learn like words, and then we learn grammar, and then it's back to the basics.
Okay.
That's when I learned the national anthem.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So wait, so from a citizenship perspective, did you have Australian citizenship then, or not yet?
No, that was with Australian citizen, I think you need to live in Australia in a period of like 2 whole years out of 5 or something like that.
Yep.
Fully before you qualify to go for the application for the citizenship.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Did you have to do a test?
I don't remember doing one, but maybe I was too young. So maybe my mom did one.
Yep. Okay. So then after doing that Cleveland Street, intensive language school, did you then go to high school, or did you?
Then I went to high school. Went to the local for Maroubra. Well, not exactly local, but I went to Randwick Girls.
Yep.
And that is when I met one of my longest friend by date, Elaine. Hello. We're still friends now, and that's when so year 7.
Wait, so I thought you went to Crestwood.
Well, I was still living in Maroubra then.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until we moved to Kellyville.
Okay.
That's when I
changed schools.
Yeah, because
okay.
Maroubra is there.
No. So okay. So how many years did you? So when did that happen then?
So went to Randwick Girls for a year and a half. So moved to Kellyville when I was in year 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then was that also a bit of a change for you, obviously?
Yeah. But by then it's just like I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
And I think I was just really glad because Elaine's family also moved to the same area, and she also went to Crestwood.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
So that probably helped with the transition, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it was.
So you had a friend.
Yeah, I had a friend. Yeah. And we were like just obviously in the same grade.
Yeah. Okay. So then, how do you describe yourself in those high school years? Like, did your personality start to change at all? Did you sort of work out a bit more about who you were as a person, or?
Oh, my mom said that I changed a lot when I hit puberty. Like I got so moody, so disagreeable, so selfish.
Actually, I'll tell you a story there. So my brother's eldest daughter, Kayla, so she's, in that stage at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And the last time I was over at their place, I was asking Kayla some questions. Oh, how's school, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, she'd give me like these 1-word answers, right? And I'm like, wow, like what's happened to you, right? So look, I'm guessing it's normal, and apologies, Kayla, if you take any offense to that. But when you were little, Kayla, you were so sweet. There's one time I was my brother asked me to babysit for them, and I had no experience with babies back then. Right?
Yeah.
And a couple of things happened, but Kayla survived. I survived, so everything was okay. But I learnt the lesson very quickly about don't leave babies unattended on the bed.
Oh
so,
wow!
Yeah.
You dropped it.
No, I didn't drop her. I actually caught her as she was falling to the ground. So I did a good job.
Oh my
so
god!
I literally put her there and went to get the nappy, and I turned around, and then as I turned around, she wasn't rolling, she was crawling, and so I sort of dived, and I got under her and I caught her, so everything was all good.
Wow.
And then then it was like, came time to feeding her, and it was like this, messy experience.
Yeah.
And then I think, Donnie and Clem asked me, oh, how was she? And I said, oh, she's eating the fruit well. And they're like, yeah, because that's fruit. Like, did she eat the vegetables? Did she eat it? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, you were the uncle, so I mean,
yeah.
Now you have your own kids. You probably care about the veggies more.
Yeah,
Back then you're like survival mode.
yeah, but you know, you don't always get it right. Like even just tonight, like I was literally just walking past this, and I just smacked my daughter's head into that edge. Not Cadence, it was Eden. So the little baby,
Oh
yeah,
my
right before
God.
bed, and I'm like, oh my goodness, because I was literally just holding her, and I
Yep.
was like, I went to grab something, and I was
You
about to go put her
swung
to sleep.
back.
No, and I'm just walking down, and it's just gone knock into the corner, and then I was like, I felt so bad, like there was a little indent on her head, and I was like trying to suck it out. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, Eden. Anyway,
Whatever doesn't kill you will make you stronger.
yeah. So you know, these are the joys of parenthood.
Yes, yes.
So yeah.
Enjoy.
So you know, as your mum was saying, you changed a lot. You were moody.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. It in reflection now, like, yeah, I just felt like the world was against me.
Really?
Yeah, like I just felt so alone. Like I felt like no one understood me.
Really? What about even like your friends like Elaine? Because they would have been going through it too, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, I think I went through a pretty dark phase, especially when she probably doesn't know, but like she went to Oak Hill for year 11 and 12,
Oh, okay.
and I felt really sad.
Okay. Yeah, because your friend's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just really upset, and I kept pushing to my parents like, oh, maybe I should go to a different school to, like, you know.
Oak Hill?
No, for some reason I didn't want to go to Oak Hill, just,
Okay.
you know, just to bite to the situation.
Okay.
I was like, no, I looked up all these schools. Hills Grammar looks really good.
Okay.
Send me to Hills Grammar.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, look, that will scale my grades better. Like, don't you want me to go to a better university?
Okay.
But like, in hindsight, it's just so silly. But yeah, I think my parents also went through a divorce. Oh, going back to the dark phase again.
Yeah. Okay.
During HSC, and I think that was like the all-time worst for me.
Yeah.
Like,
The timing was impeccable.
Yeah, I
it's
know.
Right during your HSC.
yeah, but like they've always quarreled, but like which family didn't?
Yeah.
But that's only in hindsight. Like,
Yeah.
when it was happening, it was too embarrassing to say to my friends like my parents are fighting, or like this is happening in my life. It just felt so hard to share those kind of things with my peers back then. So I always felt like I wasn't living my life truthfully.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like I had to put on like a brave, happy face.
Yeah.
At school or like with my peers. So that's probably when I felt, that's why what I said, that it was not a happy teenager, or I was really moody and disagreeable.
Yeah.
But I think like my nature is quite caring, so it just was really conflicting, and I wasn't definitely not in a happy space.
Did you feel like you had to take sides with that, like with the whole divorce thing?
Yeah.
So you actually felt like there was pressure to pick a side, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like I try to stay neutral, but like I just felt like one party was being unfair, and then obviously I also said some hurtful stuff, which we've all hashed it out now. Like,
Yeah.
but I didn't know who I could talk to about. Like, I didn't feel comfortable talking to even Elaine about this as much. I definitely enjoyed spending time with my friends doing teenager stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely was in those moments having fun.
Yeah.
But after we say our goodbyes, then I instantly feel
You're back to loneliness.
Yeah. So it was really difficult. I won't say that I fully blame my grades on my parents. I think there was just a lot of things trying to figure out life. I had friends that were really clear on what they wanted to do in the future.
Yeah.
That also
Made you feel less like you're not.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
it was
with
really stressful for me because I just don't know what I want to do. And
Yeah.
then I was like, no, well, I can do this, but I can do that. I'm like, I can't decide.
Yeah.
That has always been. I've got so much interest and not enough time, and needing to choose and being so clear on what your passion is. Like, what is passion?
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to choose one
Yeah.
and then draw a full stop?
Yeah. Well, there's like this, I think a lot of people felt this expectation when they're going through high school that, you need to know what you want to do when you're going to university and what you're going to do for your job and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's all, at the end of the day, you got plenty of years to figure it out.
That's true. And even like finishing my degree, I wouldn't even say that I'm not even an industrial designer in practice. So, and a lot of people from work, they're not even, like, their role isn't even the degree that they finished
started with. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you never know where life will take you.
Yeah.
So don't be too stressed about that.
Yeah. And I think, like even just speaking about, your parents going through that tough time, like I had the same thing. So my parents, I think I've told this story on one podcast before about, my parents used to argue a lot. And I remember this one time where, my parents were like throwing plates at each other. My mum smashed a plate over my dad's head and he had to go get stitches.
Wow.
Right. So my parents used to fight pretty bad. And obviously as a child, I don't know. I remember like my brother and me like lining up or something. And, I can't really remember the words that were said, but I know that they were hurtful, like, and so, I think a lot of people have these sorts of things when they're growing up, right? And I think I felt very much the same way as you. I sort of withdrew into my own little shell when I got into years 11 and 12, because my parents were going through that sort of a thing. So, so we sort of had like at my high school, we had like a couple of groups, right? And then, so the main sort of group that I hung out with was the guys that we call them at the basketball court, so the courts guys or whatever. But then, when I started to get towards year 11 and 12, I was hanging out more with a friend. There was two Ben Wongs in our grade, so we had Big Ben and Crazy Ben. and the distinction was just because Big Ben was the bigger Ben, and then but Crazy Ben, he was crazy. Right? So I'm sorry, Crazy Ben, if you ever listen to this, but there was this
crazy.
Yeah, like there's this one time, I think it was in woodwork, and Crazy Ben had his arm in a cast because he'd broken it or something like that, and he was like, acting crazy. Like he was just like, oh, I see purple spots and all this.
Oh my
anyway,
God.
so he was. That's how we distinguished the two Bens. So there was Big Ben and Crazy Ben, and so I became really close friends with Big Ben in years 11 and 12 because we were just playing music. We used to go to the music rooms and play piano and play music and stuff like that at lunch. But yeah, like I sort of like on the outside, I was still the same, but on the inside, I was just wanting to do my own thing, kind of thing. And I think that's a fairly normal thing because you don't really know how to process all those emotions, right? So, especially when it's, and I wouldn't say it's like when it's a shock or a surprise. I think it's more like, what does it mean, right? So at that age, when your parents tell you, oh, we're getting separated or we're going to have a divorce or something like that. So my parents said they were going to separate or something like that. So what does that mean, right? And this, and as much as whether your family unit was whether it was cohesive or it was a lot of fighting over the years anyway, you still have the unknown, right? You don't really know what it actually means for this next step, right? And you don't really know what it's going to entail until it actually happens, right? And then for me, then that sort of then from that step, my mum had a car accident where there were, a teenager had run out onto a road chasing a tennis ball.
Oh,
Yeah, and obviously she was the unlucky car that was driving past at the time he sprinted out onto the road.
yeah.
And that, I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back, in the sense, like, mentally impacted her a lot.
Yeah.
And at that age, I never really appreciated what counseling was for, and that when you have something impactful like that happen,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess the best way I can describe it, like, I didn't see it, right?
Mm.
But from what I could understand of what had happened, if you imagine somebody coming through your windscreen, what sort of an impact is that going to have,
Oh my God.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, like, people don't think about it, right? But, like, if you're traveling, 60 Ks down the road and you hit somebody, that's 60 Ks of impact is quite a lot of force.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
So, those things, I think, just create so much trauma that, if you're already not in the best of my headspace already,
Mm-hmm.
it can send you over the edge, right? So, that's sort of, what happened to my mum. And then, I was trying to work out, well, what does that all sort of mean,
Yeah.
right? And, I didn't know what the best ways to sort of help her were. And, we've made plenty of mistakes. Like, I sent my mum overseas thinking that would help her, and then she wouldn't come back, So there was all sorts of things that related to that. But, the things that, and part of the reason why I think it's important to talk about it is because, a lot of people say, well, would you change anything? And for me, I think I would always say that, no, I wouldn't. Like, I think the lessons are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always dealt the hand that you dealt.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would do differently is try and work through the progression faster, right? You can't skip a step,
Mm-hmm.
because if you skip a step, the outcome could be completely different,
That's right.
right? So that's how I sort of reflect on those times. I guess for you now, reflecting back on that, were there any mistakes that you felt that you made? Obviously, you mentioned you said some hurtful things, but everybody did.
Yeah.
Were there any other things that come to mind in relation to when that all unfolded?
I think, like you said, things happen, and you can't change it. It's already happened, and like, you can only deal with what's happened and the results. And like I said, we as a family, we've worked through. I mean, like, by that I mean I've had lengthy chats with my dad, lengthy chats with my mom, lengthy chats with my now sister.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone through a lot of just like it's like a work in progress. Like, relationship takes work. It's never just like it's all dandy, and then just it because they're family doesn't mean that you take them for granted as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. With Asian family, it's sometimes we say like, oh, family blood is thicker than water. We're always gonna be for you, there for you. But still, it still takes work, and sometimes because your family, you could potentially neglect that politeness and be way too blunt sometimes. It's good and bad, because you don't want to hide behind like being fake.
Yeah.
But then sometimes when it's too truthful, it's just too raw.
It's a bit painful.
It's just, I guess what I've learned over the years is that relationship is a two-way street, and it's a constant work. You can't just let go. Yeah.
Did so I'm curious about this. So from an emotional perspective, right? You would have processed all of those sorts of emotions. I think, everybody always likes to say, oh, like, denial's the first step and all this sort of stuff. But can you just, elaborate on what you remember the processing of emotions was for you? Like, did you harbor resentment for a while? Like, because I know I did, right? And I had a lot of resentment towards my dad for a very, very long time. And for me, you know, I don't really know when it sort of dissipated, but I remember it was just one day where I had this dream, and you know, I sort of felt like the only person that was hurting was me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just decided I'm not going to hate him anymore.
Mm.
And you know, and he and we had a conversation, you know, in a car. I don't know where we were going, but he apologized to me, and you know, it was I guess it was a fairly emotional moment from that perspective. But from my perspective, you know, like it's not, and look, I appreciate the apology. It doesn't change anything from that perspective, but at the same time, it's not like, you know, it wasn't really about forgiveness or anything anymore. Like it's just like I'd already let it go, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, from that perspective, I just was just like it didn't really. No,
It's not worth holding it.
yeah, well, I don't want to say it didn't mean anything. It means something, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
But the point was that, like, you know, because I'd already made that decision, like, it didn't really change much from that perspective. Like, you know, it's like I appreciate the apology,
Yeah.
but you know, I'd already made a decision that, hey, I don't want to let this
Affect you.
poison me,
Yeah.
right? So the easiest way is to not to say not care about it, but just not hold the same animosity towards it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And I guess in a way, it's the same. Like, but I do wonder, like, if our resentment, like I also was with my dad.
Yep.
Is it because men just aren't as good at expressing their pain or their thoughts, or and so because we don't know what's going through their head, you're men, but like then we could make up our own assumptions just by their decisions, and a lot of the times dad's decision is a lot more like practical, and like you don't see like that caring emotional side, and you feel like he didn't care.
Yeah.
And because the perception of him not caring as much, then you develop that animosity or like resentment on like why.
Yeah.
Like even though like
Because you don't understand it.
Yeah, you don't understand what he's thinking.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like ask him, like
Yeah.
being the kid, being his child, then you just create this resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be, right? Like I think, you know, all those sorts of things come from uncertainty, right?
That's right.
So when you don't really know how the other person's thinking or feeling, then yeah, that could lead to fear. It could lead to anger,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I guess I don't want to look. There could be a portion of it that's a male thing, and you know, from that perspective, that could be, you know, related to why you know people commit suicide, right? Like they can't speak out their feelings and they feel trapped or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it could be a factor of that, and that's, you know, I don't really have an answer for that. Like I think that's something that every individual has to work out for themselves. You know, from that perspective, you know, if they know that they're in trouble and they need help, like how do you broach that subject? It's never an easy subject to broach.
Yeah, and through going through a very dark time myself, I do feel that it's really hard for people to help me if I didn't want the help. Like there were people there for me, but when I wasn't ready to accept or come out of that mindset, no amount of like encouragement, no amount of like consulting or like being supportive would have gotten through.
Yep.
Yeah. It actually in a way gave me more pressure. Like I felt like I was letting them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, look, I can see that as well. Yeah, you feel like you're a burden to someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're like, I don't need you to tell me that tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
It will get better.
Yeah, give it time.
Give it time. Time will heal.
Yeah.
You don't need that kind of, like, I know all that,
Yeah.
but I'm just not ready to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think with age, with moving out, living by myself, not depending on the family, it gives you a fresh perspective
on it.
Like you appreciate what your parents used to do for you.
Mm.
That little things that you didn't think was happening in the background, but was happening.
Yeah.
You appreciate how expensive everything was. All the time and effort that they spent on you trying to put you in a better position against your peers.
Yeah.
Or that take time and money. Like that's all love. Like even if they don't say they love you.
Yeah. That's typical in the Asian parent.
That's so typical. But like it isn't until that I taken that step of like moving out and doing all this stuff myself, then I realized that those are all their language of love, like their expression of love, even though they might not say it.
Yeah, they're thinking about how do they get the family ahead.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's a very Eastern culture ideology, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Where they're thinking about, you know, the family and 面子, so like, you know, their pride, you know.
Yeah.
And it's that's why it's very common for Asian parents to be, you know, quite, I would say, competitive in the sense of, you know, wanting to compare their kids and being focused on marks and academics and those sorts of things. But I think, you know, we're fortunate in that sense that we are exposed to the Western ideologies as well. You know, like, so, and look, I think because of what my parents did, it's allowed me to then approach parenting my kids in a slightly different manner, right? Like, so, you know, the things that I value is spending spending as much time with my kids as possible. And not to say that my parents didn't value it, but they prioritize obviously trying to put food on the table, right? So it's, you know, when we're thinking about it like a hierarchy of needs, I think, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first layer is obviously survival and being able to eat, right? So I think, you know, our parents being, you know, the first generation of migrants into the country, they're focused very much on that bottom layer, right?
That's right.
So for us, you know, because we've been given so many of these layers to build up on, we can focus on other things.
That's right. Yep.
So, you know, that's sort of the difference. And I think there's always an element of nature versus nurture, right? Like sometimes it's just people have specific personalities and they're always going to be the way that they are, right? Like I feel like that's probably me in the sense that, you know, no matter what, I'm always going to try and focus on the positive things and do that, approach it from that angle. And I think, you know, how much of that is through nurture versus my nature, I don't really know the percentage, right? Because I look
hard to say.
Yeah, because I look at my son and I go, you know, this guy's like, you know, unfortunately he's a mini me, right? Like, you know, and Andrew's just telling a story like he's born in the year of the dog, and you know he runs around acting like a dog, like he eats food off the floor. Sometimes I give him a bowl of cereal and he's put the cereal on the floor and he's eating the bowl eating it out of the bowl on the floor.
That is so peculiar.
Yeah, he's a strange boy, but like I think he just views the world very differently, right? And he's got no fear. When I say no fear, so you know, personality wise, like Cadence, she'll make her friends, you know, at her school and familiar environments that, you know, she'll attend regularly. Whereas Harley, you know, we go to a park and he's like, I want to make friends with these people, right? Yeah. So just random kids, right?
Yeah.
And so the other day I took him to the local park, and then there was, I think, a group of 3 boys playing, and they had like toys and things like that. And then he was like, I want to be their friend. And he's telling me in Chinese, you know, 我要做朋友. And then I'm like, okay, well, go and introduce yourself. Like I told him, you know, 去问他们的名字是什么，你叫什么. And then so he went up to one of the boys, and then he's standing there, and then the boy just started screaming, right? Like just like and then because he thought maybe like Harley's going to steal his toy.
Right.
And then Harley got really upset about it.
Aww.
And he's like, oh, 他们生气我. Like, you know, they're angry. They got angry at me. And then I said, okay, well, you know, just like he probably thinks that you want to take his toy. So
explain yourself.
Let's go and explain yourself, right? And so it got to the point where he got really upset that they wouldn't play with him.
Yeah.
So he sat on the bench, and I actually felt really sorry for him because he sat there by himself, and he's like, 他们不要做我的朋友. Like they don't want to be my friend.
Yeah.
And so then I said, okay, come on, Harley, let me come and try and help you. And so I went up to I took him over, and then he was looking at one of the boys, and then the mum was like, oh, like, what's your son's name? And I said, oh, this is Harley. And then she said, oh, my son's name is Josh. And then, Josh can hardly play with you guys. And then they were really nice. Like in the end, like they gave him a little dinosaur toy and he was so happy.
Cute.
Right. And then, this little bugger of a kid, my kid, is playing with this dinosaur. And then like, because it was a group of like 3 other families or whatever, they must have like been getting together after Halloween and having, or whether it was a Halloween get together or something like that.
Yeah.
And they had cupcakes. So when they busted out these cupcakes, I told Harley, oh, Harley, come over here. So, because I didn't want to like steal their cupcake.
Yeah.
and I didn't want him to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So I said, Harley, come over here and show Daddy the dinosaur that you're playing with.
Yeah.
And then the mum was like, oh, can Harley have a cupcake? And I was like, oh, here we go. And I said, Harley, nyatsu nakatangama? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. Yes, Harley would like a cupcake. So then he ignores me, goes and sits on the bench with the other families. And I'm sitting on this other bench by myself, and he's just sitting there eating their cupcake. And so after that, then another 20 minutes after, and I said, look, Harley, we got to go now. And then he's like, oh, but I'm not finished playing with my friends.
Aww.
And then the next day he was like, oh, I want to go back to the same park to meet up with his friends. And I said, look, they're probably not going to be there.
Yeah.
And so I took him back, and they obviously weren't there.
Yeah.
But then as a result of that experience of making friends and then getting free food, the other afternoon I took him and Cadence to a park. And so rather than playing with his sister,
looking for the food.
Yeah, he went up to these other 2 people playing, and the girl would have probably been in maybe year 3 or 4, like she was an older girl with a boy that was probably 4 years old or something like that. And he said it in English. He goes, "Hi, I'm Harley." And I'm like, "What did you just say?" Right? Because like we try and speak to him in Chinese all the time, right? And he's like, yeah. So he goes, "Hi, I'm Harley." And then I was like, "Oh wow!" I was like shocked, right? And so then
he's not even at preschool.
No, but he said he introduced himself
in perfect English
to this older girl and the younger boy, and then
anything for food.
Well, there's no food, but then I said to him, "Okay, you need to ask what's your name." Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, "What's your name?" And then he got their names, and then basically he went off and played with them.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, it was just, wow. Like, and then I was like, Cadence, do you want to go play with them as well? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to play with Daddy. And I'm like, okay.
That's
so it's just like
nature.
Polar opposites in terms of personality, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So, I don't think that's really a nurture thing. I think that's just innate, right? And then obviously, we can...
In this instance,
right? Like, because at that age, you either a social, like you're an extrovert like that, or you're not.
Yeah, definitely. And that's quite interesting because like recently did like a leadership course, introductory to leadership, and then we did a DISC assessment, and that's about like what you're naturally
gravitate
towards and what kind of personality you are. And I think that's quite good that we got to do that assessment because like it kind of teaches or tells me who I am. And where my strengths and weaknesses are, and by knowing that, that's a good thing because then that teaches me like how I could adjust the way I say stuff because a lot of the times it's not just how you think you are presenting yourself, but like how are other people's
interpreting you?
Their perception of you. And that is a big factor on like how you're at work and how you can better communicate. I think at the bottom of the day, it's all about like that communication, better that making it clear because like you can say one thing, but other people might interpret it as like something else, and you want to break that silo. Yeah.
So what did you score high on?
I scored high in, I think, what's it?
Influence. Yep.
No, the other one, S.
Steadiness.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised because I thought I would be higher on the influence.
Yep.
Like I love the story side, but then when I really look into it, like steadiness, I do like structure, and I also really like playing the bad guy. Like when we're in like projects, I'll be like, but what if this happens?
You're one of those people.
The devil's advocate. I mean, like, that's important, right? You want to make sure that you have a contingency plan for things.
Yeah. So I guess, to explain to anyone who has never done a DISC profile before, there's 4 categories. They rank it, so not rank. The categories
Categorize.
Categories are dominance. So D is for dominance, I is for influence, C is conscientiousness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. And S is steadiness.
Yep.
Yeah. And so basically, it's like trying to. I think the other thing that they say about disc profiling is it relates to the 4 quadrants of the brain as well. So so it could be a bias of left brain, right brain, forward brain, back brain, and so and generally, you know, some people have like even scores across all 4. There's no right or wrong. Some people are really high in one attribute and not as high in the others. I think when I did it years ago, I generally
D.
Yeah, I'm a high D, high I. So
For sure.
just missing the C and the K, and then I just be a dick. But sorry. Yeah, so high dominance, high influence. So I did it a slightly different way years ago, and people can probably Google this one. There was a lady that came to our workplace at Toyota Motor Corporation. She called it the fruit quiz, but essentially it was the same thing, but just she had different analogies for it. I think, you know, if you Google the fruit quiz online, there'll be like this 1-page sort of questionnaire with 4 columns, and it basically just asks you out of those 4 words which one is the most like you, and so you just go through and you tick the words, and then you just add the total up for each of the columns, and then that will then
Kind of tell you.
spit out your score. So it's a really easy way without going through the really, like, there's, I think that you can, there was one that you did like 100 questions or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, these things, it's just a guidance, and you change. People change.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of the times people have a different personality at work versus at home.
Yes, so there was like a natural score and also an adjusted score.
Yeah.
But mine was like SS.
Okay, so you're just steady the whole
I'm
way.
just steady all the way.
You're just a
True
cynic.
to myself. I'm just the what?
A cynic.
Don't tell me. Tell me the truth. Are you sure?
Yeah. So then, did you do that? So did you do that with your workplace?
Yes, it's through work, and also so two of my colleagues went on the course with me.
Yep.
It was kind of good because we were around the same middle management kind of level.
Yep.
So it was really good that we did the course together. So it's in the sense that we will be able to kind of like share our progress on if we were able to utilize what we've learned, because like learning is only accountable for like 10%. You gotta, the rest of it, it's more like you gotta put it to practice.
Application.
Like 21, you gotta do it 21 times before it's like
Forms a habit.
Forms a habit. So long way.
Yeah. So did it help to change some of your perceptions around communication?
Yes. It helps me kind of doing the DISC assessment. Not only just tells me who I am, but like it also helps me identify what other people are, and can understand why they might always misunderstand me. Not that there's often that case, but like, or how could I better or adjust my communication when I talk to these people to better that communication channel.
I like the DISC profiling. I think it's once you put it into practice and you start to think about, you know, what attributes other people may have. I think that and the learning languages, I think there's like 6 learning languages or something like that. And when you put those 2 things together, then you can sort of come up with a fairly robust way to teach people things. So I sort of, you know, I credit probably, I do credit Kung Fu for helping me a lot from the teaching side of things, because I had to teach so many different types of people over the years. You were even my student once.
Yes.
So, but like, I think, you know, there's different ways to improve your teaching ability, and not everybody is a good teacher either, right? So, and let's not throw any instructors under the bus, but, you know, like every instructor has a slightly different teaching methodology. And, you know, even when you go to other classes, not necessarily martial arts, but like, you know, classes for management or classes for anything, right? There's a real difference between people that can effectively communicate a good lesson and provide you with the right analogies to put into your toolkit.
For sure.
Versus somebody who's just, you know, I do this and this is the outcome.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the course that I did through AIM, it's called Leadership, New Leaders, instead of management or beginner management course, because like managing people it's not easy, but like it's not the right mindset. You don't want to manage people. You don't want to micromanage people. You want to inspire, and then how to be a good leader, and that inspire other people. Because at the end of the day, everyone's kind of like asking what's in it for me, and you want to like through one of the studies saying that that they did for a lot of companies is like money is not the main reason that motivates people. It's actually like you gotta inspire me, yeah. So that's why I thought that course was really interesting. Like, I mean, like money's great, but like I'm spending more time at work than at home, so it's
right.
gotta be enjoyable.
You need to enjoy the people that you work with. Right? And so that comes down to obviously creating a good environment. And then I think because I always say this, you know, a lot of the times when people become managers, they don't really there's no handbook on how to be a great manager.
No,
right? There's plenty of resources, but you know, nobody ever really says, you know, oh, here's, you know, your handbook of the things to do and not to do. A lot of people have to go and search for that themselves. And, you know, I would say that a lot of, like some of my experiences, some of them were trial and error. And, you know, I've made plenty of mistakes as a manager.
It's still that. Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, when you do start to really think about things more critically, and I think this is the one thing that's helped me the most in becoming a better leader, is to actually sit down with a piece of paper or with my notebook and start structuring my thoughts. Because you start to then weed out, you know, what is actually a proper assumption, what isn't a proper assumption, and how logical and reasonable your thoughts are. Because a lot of the times, you know, your initial reaction is probably emotive, right?
Yeah.
So something happens and you go, this fucking, you know, and so you're going through that process. So a lot of the times I like to take a step back and say, okay, look, you know, if it's not pressing that I need to give an answer straight away, let me go away and think about it, right? So if it's an important decision, well, even more reason to take the extra time to get it right. And you know, as long as you do end up actually making a decision, right? Like there's no point saying that, oh, I'm going to make a decision, but then you just delay the decision inevitably. Yeah. Right. But, you know, to actually sit back and even just taking 10 minutes to then just write, not a pros and cons list, but just, I call it the thought train. And this is something that I used to do because I had trouble falling asleep. Right. So, because my mind would be racing with a whole bunch of different things, right? So
D.
Yeah, I guess so. Right. So I like when I was lying there and struggling to sleep, I would basically get on the thought train and then ride it to the end of to the last stop.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
So by doing that, then it sort of allowed me to then think about, okay, so if this is going to be the outcome, then where does that go? Where does that go? Where does that go? Where does that go? Right.
Yeah.
And I think what sort of got me onto this idea was it was probably another podcast. It might have been one of Tim Ferriss's or something like that. But actually, it's from Tim Ferriss has a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, and one of the things he talks about is thinking about what are the negative consequences and going to, you know, the worst possible case scenario, because then no matter if you've thought about what is the worst possible case scenario, then anything that's not that is actually better. It's still a better outcome, right? Yep. So I think that's where I got that idea of following the thought train. And I used to just like, you know, lie there in bed and just follow the thought train, and actually by following the thought train, I just fall asleep.
Counting your sheep.
It's too long, right? So, but you know, the problem with that is that if you don't actually take any notes, then you don't really have anything. It's like reading a draft and going back to refine your thoughts, right?
Yeah, iterations.
Yeah, you gotta check what your logic is.
Yep.
And so if you don't write it down, then your premises can change. And if your premises change, you don't really have anything scientific that you can then go back to and then and refine and
where's your baseline?
Yeah, where's your baseline, right? So that's one of the things that I really like to do when it comes to thinking about, you know, problem solving, you know, is do that process of sitting there, pen and paper. Sounds really old school because I know everybody loves to type, but there's something about, you know, writing.
Pen and paper.
That it feels good.
I still take notes for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Even if I have to convert it into like digital stuff.
Yeah. And look, personally, I hate having books because just like it's another thing that you need to carry around. But it just, when it comes to thinking through your thoughts. Yep. And I think it could also be related to the speed that you type versus the speed that you write.
Yes.
So I think, you know, it's a lot of people say, like, if you read old literature versus new literature, the styles are very different because, you know, if you had to write with a quill and ink, and you had to wait for the ink to dry before you can sort of go over the next thing, it's going to allow you to think about what you're actually writing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But nowadays we can type so fast that we're typing as fast as we're thinking.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like almost mental verbal
Diarrhea.
diarrhea.
For sure.
Doesn't mean that it's any good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, on Instagram, like they have that function where it just picks up what you're saying and turn it into like text.
Yeah.
That's
like
crazy.
auto captions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, YouTube does it as well. So it's just one of those things that I think it's nice to be able to slow down with your thoughts.
For sure. Slowing down. Like these days I'm getting all these like migraines like at 2 or 3 p.m. because I feel like I've overused my brain. And then I was like, okay, I need to make a cup of tea. I mean, like I've been working from home since like COVID last year. So like it's a blessing as well as a curse.
Like a lot of distractions.
No, actually, like I am a lot more productive.
Okay.
During the times that and I'm actually working longer hours because sometimes you sit down, you do work, and you're like, oh shoot, it's like 6 or 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Obviously, during middle of the day, I could put a load of washing in there. That's great.
Yeah. Well, that'll be your lunch break anyway.
Yeah. But like to then you're like kind of stuck with your own brain, and then you're just like maybe over planning or like just overthinking, and without the distractions from your colleagues, you're just like zoomed in doing your work, and 100 miles a second is just so it's been a really interesting thing, and work's been asking like, oh, do you guys want to like come back? They did a survey, and I think people really enjoy working from home. Yeah. So we might go back in like a hybrid kind of way. Yeah.
Few days in the office.
Few days in the office doing collaboration stuff, and then like focus days at home. Yeah. Which is great. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about work, and then I want to go back a little bit and sort of fill in the gap between uni and work, right? Yeah. But so, you know, in Hurstville, there is a whole bunch of different furniture outside, public furniture, that is made by your company, right?
That's right.
Yep. So, and your role's changed a few times there, so I don't really know exactly what you specifically look after there now.
Yeah. So right now I'm like the product manager. I take care of like the go-to-market commercialization phase for new products and product improvements. So we did this collaboration pilot project with Georges River Council, which is where Hurstville is. Yep. Introducing a new modular range, and also introducing this. The project's called Chill Out. Basically, it's like a shade structure that has a lot of monitoring kind of sensors for like, and then also provides Wi-Fi. It's with all these sensors, it's to help the councils better track their asset. It's like help them with the asset management, and also provide internet Wi-Fi and also charging power for like the end users like you and I. Yep. So it was a really interesting project, and I can see that there's still a lot of like products around. Yep. There's like the tree planters, there's the seats.
So hang on. So I know that the bins have sensors, which basically tell the council when the bins are full.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Okay. So and I know there's charging points because there's charging. So basically, you know, and this is something that I think is really interesting, right? So in Asia, you know, like those central spaces, so park spaces and central sort of gathering areas, whether you call it like a town square or something like that, they're always in use. Like whether it's people dancing in them or people doing Tai Chi or speeches or events, there's always something happening, like celebrations and things like that, right? Yeah. So, but typically in most, I don't think it's as common in Australia. obviously Hurstville being quite a lot of people of Asian descent.
Asian centric.
It is a little bit more common, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, I can go to there's a little green space just next to the station, and there's people doing Falun Gong in the mornings and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
you know, it is a little bit more common, but, you know, and we've also got like the seating for people to play like chess
Yep.
and things like that. So, you know, it is a little bit more common, you know, and I have seen, you know, people dancing and doing those sorts of things. But, you know, I think in probably suburbs where there isn't as much Asian population, it's probably not the same, right?
Actually, we have these settings. So we did it in 3 suburbs in Georges River Council. So the one that's in the Hurstville Town Square.
Yep.
There's a Timothy Park Reserve. There's also some pop-up stuff there. We did one in Kogarah.
Okay.
As well as Mortdale.
Mm-hmm.
And Mortdale, I think the population was a little bit more Greek or Italian. And I think just like we did interview, and a lot of people wanted like places for them to kind of sit down and have a long chat. And then so we had like long communal tables.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been really well received. People enjoy that long communal table kind of structure, because like then they can have lots of like families just sit there and have a chat, and then using the facilities, and that was really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what other sensors there are, because, you know, the bins were an obvious one. The charging points I can understand. What else is there that's got sensors in it?
So the bins, it can sense. It's partnered with this company called Smart Sensor, and it does fire detection.
Oh, wow.
Like, obviously.
So somebody tries to set the bin on fire, it knows.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, wow, okay.
And
that's
then,
a good feature.
Yeah, that's right. And also, so the level, like how full it is, it could, I mean, in a city like, in a metropolitan area, it probably makes sense to send out the Garbo.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And then also like, the locations of the bins are probably quite close. But if you were to put these sensors out back in like Broken Hill, the bins could be like
take months or weeks,
half an hour away from each other. Yeah. So that will, if you go and collect like an empty bin, that's such a waste of resource, right? Yep. So the sensors does help, and then also it could tell you like, oh, this bin is always empty. Yeah. Obviously, you've placed it in the wrong location, then you can move it to a different place that's always overflowing.
Yes, that's interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, so that definitely helped with like asset management, and also like how you use your resources. Yeah, and also like buying bins are not cheap, and you're like people's tax money, so you want to better utilize the assets that you've purchased, right? Yeah. And then with the chill out trees that we're launching next year, it has so with this pilot project, it has like a microclimate kind of sensor, like how hot this place is. Yeah. And then also if you provide power, then there's a sensor to kind of track what it's called Watt Watcher. It senses how much power is being used. And then it's just to help the council kind of monitor.
Power in what, sorry?
Like charging, like GPO points.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's GPO points as well as USB points, so you can just plug in to charge your laptops.
So then they can see if it's actually popular or not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then also we can have optional Wi-Fi providing things, and that's an optional feature as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go back one step. So before you joined this company, were you working anywhere else before that?
No, I was really lucky to one of my tutors, he said that, Street Furniture is looking for a casual graphics assistant. Yep. And I was supposed to do my last project for uni, and I was procrastinating. So I caught this email real quick and replied, I'm like, I'm interested. Yeah, okay. And then I sent my application through, went for an interview, and I got the job. So it was like it started off as a casual job, and then as the year went by, my roles just kept evolving. Went from obviously casual, then to full-time, and then went into like a events kind of role. and then assistant marketing manager, and then product manager.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just been quite a journey.
Yep.
I've been with the company for maybe 5 going on 6
Yep.
years or longer.
Yep.
And I think the longest time that I've held the same kind of role, if you want to call it that,
Yep.
it's like 1 year and 8 months.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yep.
But honestly, we like to think of ourselves as like a 30-year-old startup.
Yep.
So we're constantly evolving.
So how long has the company been around?
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the name of it?
Street Furniture Australia.
Street Furniture Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, okay. So then from a business perspective, right? So I know you've only come into the piece, in the last 5 or 6 of the 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been a lot of changes in the company in the time that you've been there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely evolved. We've grown, we've shrunk, we've grown again, and I mean, the team that I'm in, we've went from just me and my manager to now there's 9 of us. So we've really expanded, and it's great. Like, it's so good to see how far we've come along, and the company culture is really good. And I think a lot of us has, although there's a lot of people coming and going, but there's also a lot of us that stayed.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the culture is pretty, like, being good and improving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity then, what do you think has made the culture that way? So who's set the direction on the culture? Is it the owners? Is it the managers? Is it the people? Who do you think has set that culture in place? And I guess the reason why I say that is, was the culture always that great from the moment you started there, or has it progressively gotten better over the years?
I think it's progressively gotten better. I think I was too green to know who sparked the change.
Yeah.
It's always been quite friendly, but I would say in the beginning, the management teams definitely, I mean, like, not just them, like, everyone needed to, I do recall the biggest challenges at work were the communication. Like, production will have their own language. Marketing will have our own language. I'm in marketing. And sales will have their own, like, way to calling products.
Yep.
And so, like, there will be sales orders that are, like, going out wrong because production thought sales meant this, and then the customer thought they were getting this.
Okay.
And obviously, I mean, that's why I said silo, and like between departments, it's not an uncommon thing.
Yeah.
To have this issue, but I think when I started is when the company really decided, like, no, we got to do something about it. So I had a lot of project where it will sound simple, but basically, just like, for example, it's like the color chart. We used to give the powder coat colors our own name to make it sound more fancy. But that was causing so much issues with production and sales.
Yeah.
Because, like, the names will be so similar to, like, the from the supplier that the procurement will be using the supplier name.
Yep. And you guys are using a different name.
Yeah, and then so the productions will get the colors wrong, and that was so one of the projects that I did was, like, to just align the names.
Oh, really?
And then, like, just. So that was, like, such a simple kind of project, but then it made such a difference.
Yep. Yeah. See, it's funny because in cars, right? Each of the manufacturers can have their own name for a specific color.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that for me as an operator, I always would look at the color code. Mm-hmm. So, I guess if it's like an 040, it's going to be a black, or an 090, it would be a different kind of black. But like basically, it's that's the paint code for black. So typically, I like to always refer back to what is the actual product code. It sounds very nerdy, right? But I like to memorize. I don't know why. It's a preference of mine to memorize codes.
Yeah.
So then that way you can never get it wrong. Because somebody might say, "Oh, I want this kind of grey," but then if there's 2 kinds of grey, you can get it wrong,
Yeah.
right? But if I say, okay, hang on, do you want, this
This
specific code,
or this, yeah.
or this specific code, because there's two different color codes,
Yep.
and it's important that we get the right one. And likewise, when it comes to options, you want to select the right option, so you need to make sure that's got the right code.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's how it works in cars. But yeah, I can see if you didn't have a coding system, then if the names are similar, but you might use the name Black Sapphire for one color or black, and then somebody else uses Obsidian Black for a similar color. You could get it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different grays,
Yep.
silvers, and
Yep.
blacks and whites.
Yep.
I think the most important decision is that as a company, we came together and decided that we were just going to use the name from the supplier.
Yep.
So I think what the important is not because that we changed the name, but the fact that the whole company came together and made a decision together and say, like, look, across the departments, we're going to agree that this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think that was the important part.
Yeah. Alignment.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So then from a production standpoint, were there any dramas trying to get that to meet deadlines and things like that from an alignment perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And back then we didn't have our own powder coating line.
Okay.
So we also relied on
External suppliers.
External supplier who I think might also have their own name
Yep.
to like the powder coating colors.
Okay.
So it was just it was logistic mayhem.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we did a business case. The operations manager set up our own powder coating line, which is such a asset
locally or overseas?
in our
facility?
in our factory in Western Sydney. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that has been one of our biggest greatest advantage over some of our competitors is how quick that we can, how versatile we can provide.
So bring in the raw furniture and then color code it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
So we might as well talk about Shang Chi, because obviously everybody's talking about Shang Chi.
Yes, let's do it.
So you were also fortunate enough to be on set. In production.
Yep, that was such an experience, and you were on it too.
Yep.
Yeah, we were not on the same days.
No.
Yeah, such a shame.
But tell me about your experience. So
Yeah.
Because I remember you had to go in and do a fitting.
Well, audition. Let's start from there.
All right, yeah, let's talk about the audition.
I was so jealous of you guys because first of all, it was just the guys, right?
Yeah.
From our school that were like told that of this opportunity.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh yeah, we're just looking for guys. And then I was like, oh, so good. And then you guys all went, and then like people were saying like, oh yeah, Johnny did so good. They like, how many sets do you have to do to show?
Yeah, you got to do a whole bunch of different. Everyone did well. So, so Peter Chi, Jimmy, David, myself. I think it was just the four of us for our audition, and then I had Joshy who worked with me, and then he had a couple of guys that he knew as well. So Jimmy James, who wanted to be on the stunt team, and so we went and did our audition day together, and yeah, it was like I think we all got put through the same thing. I think even you went through the same style of audition after, right? So you do a few sets. Yep. They ask you to showcase some weapons or whatever. Yep. And then they had some pole choreography to see how well you could pick up choreography, right?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So went through all that. It was really, really cool. Andy, the Cantonese, Andy, the choreographer, he was like, at the end, he was like, do you know Tai Chi? And being the straight-laced person, I'm like, no. But look at the movie. There's like all Tai Chi. I wish I said yes. Maybe I could have had more time on it. Yeah. But yeah, so got a call. I mean, I probably wasn't part of the first rounds because I know you guys all got called in for some time, which you had to.
When I was overseas. So, okay.
You were overseas.
So this is okay. Well, look, unfortunately,
first rule in show business.
Yeah, you got to drop everything, right? So, unfortunately for me, I couldn't do the first round because we're going. We already booked a family holiday to go overseas for Chinese New Year, and because for the last 20 odd years I'd been doing line dancing every single Chinese New Year, this was the first time that I basically wasn't going to celebrate Chinese New Year in Australia. Right, so from that perspective, and look, I think the timing was actually really fortunate because if we didn't go then, COVID hit after. So when we went to Malaysia, like people were starting to talk about COVID. And I remember on our flight back home, people were wearing masks on the flight, but we had young kids and there was no way our kids were going to wear masks. So we wanted to make it as normal as possible. Nothing happened anyway. We didn't catch COVID or anything. But, for us, like I got called and they're like, oh, can you make it this day? And I'm like, oh, I'm flying out that day. And I'm like, oh, and then so I had to say no. And then, so I got called 3 times and I think I said no too many times.
Yeah. Too many times.
Too many times. But the timing was just unfortunate. So,
yeah.
So I was on set, but I don't know. I don't think you can see me in the film, but, we had a long 15-hour day. But yeah, it was still an experience because, I've never been on, a major movie film set, right?
And Marvel, Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right. So from that perspective, the other guys got on a lot more, which is great, and they had a blast. And I'll talk to those guys as in future podcasts as well. But let's talk about your experience. So.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, I wasn't part of the first round, and I was like, oh, I didn't make it. I mean, my partner Jimmy, he was like doing like weeks. And then he comes home and talks about like this amazing catering, the experience. I was seeing Simu, seeing Tony Leung, seeing like Michelle Yeoh, and then I was like full jealous, but also, and he was like, but I was like so professional. I wasn't like fanboiling, it's like, it's courtesy. And I was like, oh yeah, you're Asian, courtesy, respect.
And bear in mind, so your Jimmy hit the other Jimmy in the head.
Yeah. It's part of show business, all right? Wipe it off and continue. It's just to make it more realistic, Yeah.
The injuries.
Yeah.
I don't think they use that take anyway.
No,
so.
Unfortunately. But so I think this was like maybe June of 2020. I got a call and said like, oh, are you available this time? And I immediately said, yes, I'll take time off. And then so they're like, oh, that's great. Come in for a fitting. And then went in for a fitting, and it happened to like David was also on the same day. So I saw him at the fitting, and then had like just makeup, costume put on, and I was like, this is so cool. And like I saw like the stuff that they bought, like earrings that they got from like Lovisa, which is like just a local Australian brand. So I immediately afterwards went to Lovisa, found the same earrings and bought them. I didn't wear them today, but I wore it to all the when I went to watch the movie. And then they sent me the day, and then I was really early starts. Like they gave us a brief, like please come in with like some makeup according to the brief. So I woke up at like 3 a.m, did my makeup, showered, did my makeup, washed my hair because that was like the requirement. Went on set, then went into costume, makeup, hair, makeup, got that all done. It was like so early in the morning, so cold. Then they told us to take off our jacket because they want to see us all in costume. And we were wearing like singlets, and it was like
freezing,
like July, right? I was like freezing, and then haven't had my breakfast, and I was like, and the saddest part is that breakfast was like, because of COVID, has been pared back, and everyone just got like this tiny little box of like food instead of like the buffet spread that I was expecting. And then but that was on the shoot day. I just, let me go back a little bit. Like I also did 2 training days because it was like, for my scene, there was like it's very heavily choreographed. So I had to like pick up all this like choreograph like really quickly, because I even like got rid of people on the day. So I was like, no, I need to make this in. And I found out that a lot of the girls that were on my set have already did some practice prior to the lockdown.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like, no, I gotta like
Learn this.
learn this real quick. And I think it was so good because I had the martial arts background.
Yeah.
So picking up choreography wasn't
As bad.
as bad as
Yeah.
if I didn't.
Yep.
But I mean, like, that's the whole reason how I made it into this anyway.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. So I made it in.
Yep. And people can see you apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Well, yeah, I was the only one that had like orange fake hair put in, so I could just tell people like, look for the orange hair. So that was really fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a blast.
Yeah.
Like so much fun, and look, so much effort went on behind for that
Little bit. Yeah.
little bit 1 minute clip
Yeah.
at the end.
That's right. I don't think people appreciate just how many takes go into making
Yeah.
a movie and
Yep.
how much actually ends up on the cutting room floor as well.
That's right,
Right.
that's right. Yeah, I heard like a lot of all the stories that Jimmy and David came in. They're like, they had to make up choreographies on the spot. They had to like make one up, presented, and then if they like it, they'll put you position it in certain places, and if they don't, they will make you rework. And then like I don't think those scenes made it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots of heartache, but like a lot of sweat and blood went in. I mean, like even the fact that it was filmed during COVID, I got my brain swabbed 3 times a week.
Yeah. That's true.
That's how much how diligent they were
Yeah.
for it to work. And I think it went without a hiccup.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I don't think there was any cases.
Yeah, for Shang Chi being filmed in Sydney, so that was I mean like pat on the back. Yeah.
That's good. So yeah, like I think everybody had like a lot of fun
Mm.
with it. Like it is a lot of work, and like in the scene that I was in, like I felt really sorry for the girls that were in these massive high heels, you know, and just like between takes, like they're all kicking their shoes off, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I feel so sorry for you girls. And then it's like, you know, then it's like they're rolling again. You got to put your shoes back on. You got to act, you know, happy and whatever, even though your feet are killing you.
Yep.
You know. So for the guys, I don't think it was as bad because, you know, generally our costumes were relatively semi-comfortable, you know, like you can move around in them and things like that. But, you know, when you have a long day or long days, like, you know, there was a lot of night shoots as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things where it's tiring. You know, you can start to appreciate how much work goes into it.
A lot of waiting around.
Yeah.
A lot of waiting around. I mean, like, respect to actors in general. It's a hard industry.
Yeah.
Only a few will ever make it to, like, the top.
Yep.
And a lot of people working behind the scene that will never get known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Unless you read the credits and you're you know, whether you probably generally in the industry because you're looking for those kinds of people to work on other films and things like that. But yeah, it's you know, you don't see, you only see the tip of the iceberg, which is the movie. You don't see all the other work that goes underneath the water. Right?
That's right. I mean, like I watched a video afterwards of that specific scene. You might have seen it in the trailer. It's the bus scene.
Yep.
They literally was green screening pretty much everything outside the window. So everything was frame by painful frame and needing to make it like look seamless, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, the other cool thing was so there's a whole bunch of BMWs in the movie as well.
Yes.
So, you know, at the time I was at some BMW meetings, and I actually said to the marketing manager down in Melbourne, one of the national marketing managers, I go, hey, you know, there's some Marvel movies going down. Like, have we reached out? And because, you know, in the past, so I think in the first Iron Mans, there was a lot of Audis in there, and so obviously Audi had organised something. So I said, oh, have we reached out? And then so she told me on the slide, oh yeah, there's some BMW cars in there. So,
yep.
Yeah.
It's like the movie is Shang Chi and the BMWs.
And the legend of the BMWs.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty cool though, yeah.
Cool. So look, you know, we've actually already gone for a couple of hours.
Have we?
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, is there anything that you want to talk about? Feel free.
Ask you. Well, look, I mean, it's Movember.
Yeah.
So, and it's for a good cause. So find your local Movember kind of charity, and since we talked about so much about mental health and like men, our dads, just go support them.
Yeah. Look, I think at the end of the day, it's about trying to have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes there may not be anything that you can do. So, and, I guess, thinking back about my friend Age, I talk about him so much. I'm so sorry for people that, always hear me talking about him. But, I remember there was a time actually before he, did commit suicide. There was a previous time before that where he had taken a whole bunch of Panadols or something like that, trying to, kick his liver into failure or something like that to kill himself.
Oh my God.
And when Ivan and I went to see him in the hospital because he was in intensive care, they'd already pumped his stomach and all that sort of stuff. It was just one of those things where you don't know what to do for somebody, And I as soon as I saw him, I got very emotional. I burst into tears.
Yeah.
And
you feel so helpless because you want to help them, but you don't know what to do.
Yeah. And so you don't know whether, because I think what we sort of thought back then was like, is that like a, it was like a cry for help, right? So and so then you try and put as much effort in to try and help him to work through that sort of thing. But yeah, like I don't know, just then we felt like things were okay, and then suddenly they're not okay, and there was no turning back from how we did it the final time, and we racked our brains trying to think, was there a sign or anything like that? And look, I guess the only thing I can be grateful for is that I did get to see him, 5 days before he did, and whether that was intentional on his part so that was his way of saying goodbye to us or something like that, at least he got to meet my son, and the last picture that was ever taken of him was with my son, and you just sort of like I always wonder if there's something that I could have said, or there's something that we could have talked about that would have changed things. And look, there's probably, maybe there's not, right?
Yeah.
But that's, I think the lesson in that is to always not be shy to reach out.
That's
always
right.
Feel free to if you're going to give, you got to give unconditionally, right? Give without any expectation that there might be something in return. And
absolutely, and I think that's very important, because then if you have some sort of expectation, then you're going to harbor resentment, because you're not really
giving, right?
You're not
it's
giving, and
not
also
giving in the true sense of the word giving.
That's right, and you're expecting them to reciprocate that gesture, and if you're not getting it, then of course you're going to have resentment, and why live that way?
Yeah,
you're the only one that's suffering.
Yeah. But nobody ever knows what somebody else is going through, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing that I try and always remind myself, is that, if somebody's been, I guess, what's the way to put it? If somebody's being overly difficult, or we might say like they're harsh or whatever, there could be something underlying that reason, right? And so maybe there's not. Maybe they're just an asshole, right? Like there's that absolute possibility as well. But I think we need
give them that benefit of the doubt. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just so that you can sleep at night. You've done your part.
Yeah.
You want the world to be a better place. I mean, like if you start from somewhere good, if that person doesn't feel it, they're lost.
Yeah.
Like someone else might, and then you might help them.
Yeah.
Because you're giving.
Yeah, well, it's a saying that I like, that if everyone just was a little bit less of an asshole, the whole world would be a better place, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's one of those things about there's a balance between self-preservation and what's the other thing. Like if you're trying to put yourself, like push other people down to put yourself up. I don't really, like, the words escape me right now, but
Yeah.
so, you know, there's a difference between just being a good person for the sake of being a good person, or trying to push yourself up and chase the ego perspective by pushing other people down.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a real sort of distinction in that. And what I'm talking about is, you know, obviously, you know, giving people the benefit of the doubt and trying to operate as a better, like, give more than you receive. Right.
Yeah.
And if everybody gave more than they received in life, then I think, you know, we'd all be in a better place.
That's right. There's always a different perspective. Like you think in other person's shoe. You know? Yeah. They might, the way they say the thing might come across harshly, but like perhaps, like you said, there's underlying reasons.
Yeah.
And you just kind of want to like help them rephrase and help them just get out of that mindset. Maybe they're just a bit stuck themselves.
Yeah. Holy shit, I just realized there's a whole part of the conversation we didn't cover. So I'm sorry, we're going to have to cover this, right? So Monica's also got a lash business, right?
Oh, yes.
So, and I just realized we didn't cover it at all. And you didn't bring it up either. You should have been plugging yourself. So,
or lashing.
Yeah, or lashing yourself. So, and actually you just remind me of a couple of things. So I know that you like to dabble in things.
Yeah.
Right? So I remember back when you were doing the course, you said, "Oh, I'm doing this lash course," right? And I was like, "What are you doing this for?" Right?
I like it.
So, I guess explain more about what it is. We're talking about lash extensions, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean,
completely out of my depth, right?
Then you won't know that I also have a makeup course certificate.
No, I didn't know that either.
Yep.
Okay, so when did you do that?
That was during uni.
Okay.
But I realized that I really like my sleep, so
Okay. Yep.
so I didn't pursue doing makeup for. I've only done a few, like maybe movies, like with like Australian film schools, like student projects.
Yep.
And then I'm like, yeah, it's not really my cup of tea, but I just enjoy studying the theory, the beauty. I mean, it's just like a hobby, like you said, dabble. Like I said, in a way, like where was my passion? I kept wanting to try to find that one passion, like everyone's saying, like that everyone know, like, oh yeah, I want to be a doctor, or like I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be like a teacher. They all knew, regardless of what kind of passion it is, like they just knew that's like their calling. And I'm like, what is my calling? And I really liked makeup then, so I'm like, well, if I like it, then I want to take it
to the next level.
So I did the course. It wasn't cheap for a student, but like I just wanted to see what next step seems like, and then I could say, then make my call, like, oh, it's not really for me. And I enjoy like just being able to have that skill to help my family or friends if they want makeup done. That's cool. And then like lashing, I only did maybe a few years back, and I was well and truly just working now.
Yeah.
I realized that I was just spending a lot of time when I come home on the weekends doing nothing, watching Netflix. Yeah. And I just thought like, well, I was getting my lashes done. Yeah. And I was like, this doesn't seem very difficult. And it really elevated my mood after I got my lashes done. I just felt like I was a complete different person. Yeah. I felt like I had like wind underneath my sail. I was walking differently. Yeah. I was like, yes. Yes, queen. Like I could say yes to anything. All the opportunities, all the windows were opening, the doors are opening for me. Yeah. So much opportunity. Yeah, and I was just like, this is amazing. I want more people to feel this way. Like, and also it seems like a fun thing. I said, or maybe I didn't say, like, I really like working with my hands. I like putting things together, just doing craft. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided to like, why not? Yeah. Let's see what all this lash extension is about. Yeah. So I did my research on like Instagram and then found like a teacher that I liked. And then just applied the course, did the course, and then just doing lashing on the side, kind of like a hobby. Yep. Look, I mean, I should probably do more if I want to push it a lot harder, but I'm also still enjoying my
Yeah.
street furniture work. So this is more or less as like a hobby on the side kind of thing for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't you also do like a barista course, something in Taiwan?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So tell us more about it. And look, I will add in a story, right? So when I finished high school, so before I went to uni, I actually did a real estate course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm very much like you in that sense where I dabbled in a whole bunch of different things. I don't put any of these things on my resume because I think a resume should always be specific to the role that you're looking for. But I did a real estate course at the end of high school before going to uni because my mum had a real estate business at that point in time.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was in uni, my dad was dabbling with doing migration. So I did the migration agency course as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you could have helped my company come through.
but that also sort of tied hand in hand with law anyway. So it was a good sort of feeder, because I was studying law anyway, to do that course and understand, what migration law was and how that sort of gets put together. I didn't end up working for my parents.
Pursuing.
Yeah, it wasn't really
your calling.
My I wouldn't even say it's my calling. I just, it was just an experience, right? And I think, even with my current hobbies, obviously I've been involved in martial arts for a very long time. Like that's, if you were to say what's my passion, well, that's probably my passion. But at the same time, I think I don't really look at passions from a perspective of things. I like to think about it as, I guess, core principles, right? So my core principle there is I enjoy developing people, right? So I like to do things where I can develop people. So I can develop people in the automotive industry, through my staff and my employees. I can develop people through martial arts, through teaching and things like that. So as long as I have a role where I'm sort of engaged in helping other people, that's where I drive my motivation from. I don't really drive it from money. Money's not the be all and end all for me. Yes, I want to get remunerated what's fair and what I'm worth.
Of course, yeah.
But what I guess the core focus is, and that's why it doesn't really apply to it's not industry specific. But if I can find ways to develop people, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how to get people better fast.
Yeah.
And if that means that I can help them shortcut their steps to a better career, that's what I think I like to focus on. Well, that's become what I'd like to focus on because I think, when at a certain level in leadership and management, your earnings are wholly and solely driven by the quality of your people. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's why I've liked to dabble. I also, did the remedial massage course.
Yeah, you did.
With Andrew as well. So, went to TAFE to do that as well.
Yeah.
And I did all these things while I've been working, in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
So, it's...
Which is so different.
Yeah, right?
And I think it's a little bit similar to you. Like, I mean, I do it, the fact that I think the lash extensions gave me such a, a
nice feeling.
Nice feeling. I think I'm a people person. Like I did also another personality test, and they had different things, and they had rankings on like recognition, aesthetics, economics, and also what's that word? Like it means fun, but what's the other word for fun?
Happy?
No, I can't think of on top of my head, but like I like things being kept fresh and fun and like just
easygoing.
Yeah, no, like the fun factor.
Okay.
Like it just needs to be like interesting, exciting. Yeah. And I scored really high on aesthetics and also like the fun. Like I although I am stable and steady, but I also seek out that fun factor. Like it needs to be interesting.
Yep.
Otherwise I lose interest really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think that like lashing and also that coffee course and that makeup course, I think I just kind of want to make the world like nicer
Yep.
Like I mean, like coffee. Like when I did the coffee course, I didn't even drink coffee.
Yep.
But I've always liked the idea of a cafe. Like people get to, it's like almost like an escape for people. You can get out of where you are, find a nice cafe, order. I mean, coffee smells so nice, even though I wasn't a drinker then. It still gave me like good feeling when I smell it. And so it's just like, I love the idea of coffee.
Yeah.
And then when I did this course, it was through like the Taiwanese government. Like my dad told me like, oh, they're running these courses through like the foreign kind of for people, Taiwanese people that lives like in different parts of the world. And if you want to come back to, you get to learn these skill sets in Taiwan and then potentially open up your own coffee shop in like where you are. Yeah. And then so the course actually had people that was in the States, from like South Africa, from Australia, from New Zealand, and all over the place. And then we came and did that course for like 2 weeks. And you learn about coffee all the way from like how to select the beans to like how to roast it, how to, all the different types of brewing method. And then as part of the course, you learn a few like nice desserts that you can make, like bagels and like little croissants. Yeah, tiramisu. Actually, we did do that as part of like things that you could sell with coffee in a coffee shop. Yeah, so it was a really interesting course, and it's amazing that the Taiwanese government have these like initiatives for Taiwanese people that live all over the world, just to help them like set themselves up in different places. Yeah. And then there was like also other courses available. Like there was like proper food, like noodles, noodle courses and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is really cool. But I was interested in coffee, so I did the coffee course. Yeah. So yeah, it was really enjoyable. And now I'm a coffee addict. I won't say that I'm a coffee snob, because I still enjoy 7-Eleven coffee. But
you just need your fix.
Yeah, and I've learned it's a ritual thing.
Yeah, that's right. There is something enjoyable about a nice cup of coffee. You know, I always I have a love-hate relationship with coffee. I love coffee, but I always get quite bad withdrawals.
You do? Okay. Yeah.
So for me, I always get headaches after if I don't have coffee for a few days.
Right.
So, and I think that just goes back to me being an idiot in high school and wanting to be able to cram better. I used to chew on coffee beans. And so I wonder whether that's messed me up in that sense.
That is intense.
Yeah. Well, like people would be like, what? You chew coffee beans? I'm like, yeah, it's like eating nuts.
Oh.
Right? It's just bitter, right?
I remember during, I think uni or towards the end of high school for me, like chocolate-coated coffee beans were a thing.
Yep.
And then when I had it, I'm like, this is like the grossest thing. Why would anyone?
Yeah, and here I was without the chocolate, just chewing the coffee beans.
Yeah, I was like, I'll lick the chocolate off.
They weren't even good coffee beans, right? It would have been whatever was the cheapest bag at Woolies at the time. That's probably what I bought.
Yep.
And I had one bag, and that was the one bag that lasted me through high school.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do lots of stupid things like that.
Yeah. Pretty intense.
Alrighty. So if people do want to get their lashes done by you, how do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Lash and Naps, because I would like you to enjoy a quality nap time and wake up with beautiful lashes.
All right. So yeah, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Thank you, Johnny.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.